Going live in three, two, one, and there we go. We are live, everybody. Welcome back to the Weather Center. It was not my intention doing such an abnormal live stream tonight, but when I say it has been an afternoon, it has been a day. It has been a day. AC is out at home again, unfortunately, so just feeling kind of defeated. So if I seem a little more mellow this evening, I apologize, but I'm still going to get you all the information. I have a full brief here ready to rock for you. And I want to give a big shout out to someone from the channel, someone who's been on here a number of different times. A big shout out to Justin for the portable ACs, bro. Sincerely appreciate it, hooking the household up. It's meant a lot, and it helps tremendously. Not going to spend too much time on that. Just like with a regular video, if you are brand new to the channel, please kindly consider clicking that subscribe button. Regardless of what's happening behind the scenes here, you can always count on us. That's why we're still here right now, to get you all the latest information on the tropics, especially as we go through the tail end of this somewhat active phase. Then we quiet down for about 7 and 10 days, and then right around the Labor Day time frame, and especially closer to September 11th, we're going to get back to rock, and peak season is going to be in full effect. So it looks like we are already lagging for some reason, which is a huge bummer. I was afraid of that. We're already starting to lag. I don't know why. We're going to try to get through this. We're going to do our very best, so I do apologize. So let's get you over to National Hurricane Center's homepage. You can see we've had some evolutions here. Hurricane Erin continues to do its thing off the mid-Atlantic coast. It's actually strengthened a little bit, just as we were thinking yesterday when we were lagging pretty bad already. So you know what? We're just going to kind of rock through this. I apologize if I don't get to too many of your questions tonight. Please leave me comments in the comment section upon the conclusion of the live stream. I'll have a little extra spare time to make sure to get back to you and answer your questions. I promise you that. I might want to just get through the information, close out the stream, and kind of keep the train rolling. So Hurricane Erin has max sustained winds in the center of 110 miles an hour. Central pressure has deepened down to 941 millibars, and we're finally moving due north. So we are making that full curvature towards the north and eventually back towards the east, and we will slowly but surely start to pick up that forward progress as well. Couple interesting up-and-comings are disturbance just behind Erin that is going to be ripping up towards the north in hot pursuit of it, since Erin took its sweet time in the southwestern Atlantic. Now is up to code red status. We are at a 70% chance this develops over the next 7 days, and I do think by tomorrow night, and especially into Friday, those 2-day chances are going to go up and up. That is for certain, almost guaranteed at this point. All of our models are in unanimous agreement this is going to develop. It's just got a little work to do as it does so. I don't know if we're going to see much organization through the overnight hours of tonight, but especially tomorrow into Friday, that's when we'll finally start to get a bit of an area of low pressure to form, and models are again unanimously agreeing that this does have a pretty decent potential of taking on our next named storm, Fernan. Who's saying stuff in the chat in terms of hype? We haven't even gotten to anything just yet. And forgive me for the intermittence. I'm just reading the chat real quick, make sure I'm not glazing over everything. Big shout out to Chris Mazzell as well for the $10 donation. It means a lot. I do appreciate that. This is Invest 99L. And again, if you're just recently discovering the channel, I promise you this is not how things roll. Today has just been a garbled mess, so I'm going to get through all this information, and I promise we're going to have a fruitful presentation, okay? We're going to get through this. This is Invest 99L, and to tell you the truth, after looking at a couple of the ASCAT and OSCAT data overlays from the satellites up, orbiting the Earth, taking the scans of what the surface wind flow looks like around this feature, and then just the overall satellite presentation, I do think, personally, we're probably missing another named system out here. I really do think this should at least be a tropical depression. Obviously, we can't quite confirm whether or not there is a defined low-level circulation, although Given the Invest designation, National Hurricane Center must have at least a bit of an inkling that, hey, there could be a closed feature out there. It just doesn't have too much time. We've got a little bit of breakaway energy from a positive vorticity streamer that's kind of cockeyed to the northeast southwest, in between the red X there and our orange X being disturbance number 2 behind our code red feature here. I'll show you that here in just a moment. It is probably going to wash out here very soon, and we're not going to be able to really take into account another named storm. At least I don't think we will. They probably won't classify it. We're sitting at a 40 for 40 shot over the next 48 hours, next 7 days, and that'll probably be written off. Now, to tell you the truth, we're still going to have to watch for that potential Hail Mary as it moves towards the west. Through the Windward Islands, you may see a little bit of enhanced weather off of this. And then once we get into the Western Caribbean and then possibly into the Gulf, we'll have to see. Models are not really jazzed about it, but again, we'll have to kind of give it a little bit more time to percolate. I'm getting a lot of folks mentioning that there's a lot of lag on your end. You might have to refresh your page, because I have everything all good on my end. Everything says excellent connection. My OBS says we have no dropped frames. We are all good to go. And yeah, so we might need to have you guys refresh your pages and then rejoin the live stream. So just give that a shot. So far right now, it does look like everything is good. On my end anyways. And yeah, so I kind of agree with Carol Baskin. If I'm not seeing anything on my end, then there might be something on your end, or we're kind of just trolling the chat right now. And I don't have the energy to put up with that, to tell you the truth. So we're just going to keep the train rolling. In fact, I might just pick up the pace here as well. This is Hurricane Erin. It's definitely grown in size, but you can see all in all, the core has really unraveled. The core has really unraveled, and we have outflow and kind of pre-rain band conditions extending all the way up towards Long Island, the upper northeast coastline. We're seeing some rain showers extending even as far to the west as interior Carolina as well. Let me move the panel over a little bit. There you go. You get a more clear view. I forgot we were on a weird page. So you can see here that Erin has really unraveled. The center of circulation tried to make a run for some intensification earlier today. We actually managed to clear an eye out. And it does have core convection consolidated around the center, but we've ingested a lot of continental dry air, and it hasn't fully been able to mix that out. We have very robust spiral banding around the system, and the wind field is enormous because of how incredible the circumference of this system has become. Remember, we're looking at it from not only a meteorological perspective in terms of just the thunderstorms, the convection, the internal processes, but from a physical standpoint as well. And nobody said Cat 5. I definitely did not say Cat 5. Nobody said Cat 5. That's for sure. We got to get the PM if you're in the chat. I do see you now as well. Good news, Erin is moving away. We got to get Deli out of the chat. I don't know who said Cat 5. I don't know who said refresh your hype. Get out of the chat. Please get out of the chat politely. This is Hurricane Erin. We're going to continue to see intense coastal conditions along the mid-Atlantic coast, especially wrapping back around towards the Chesapeake, the OBX area of extreme eastern North Carolina. And these will persist at least until late in the day tomorrow, and then possibly even Friday morning. National Hurricane Center is expecting that we will start to pick up some forward progress with this system. You can kind of see, looking at the infrared here, it's not necessarily what you typically use to identify flow in a jet stream. You'd want to use water vapor channel for that, but you can still see how there's a really good acceleration in our mid and upper level cloud cover just to the immediate north of this system. That's also really going to help to knock this feature down. So we're probably looking at Hurricane Erin for another day or two before we start to really undergo that transition to a more non-tropical feature. It is going to get even bigger. I'll let you know right now, it is going to get even bigger. That's for sure. But that's only because this system is starting to transition. And thankfully, we're only going to realize coastal impacts. This would be at least 3 to 5 times worse had this jogged far enough to the left to create even more interior impacts, let alone a landfall. So that's good stuff. We got to take our wins where we can get them. And I'm glad that the Carolina coast took advantage of activating the mandatory evacuations when they did, because this massive system's just going to be piling up a ton of water right along the immediate coast. So coastal conditions are going to be very rough for the next day or two, but thankfully, the further inland you go, and it won't take much, you won't have to go very far inland for this. We're talking right along the immediate shores, right along the beaches, and then right as you go inland a mile or two is where things are going to get kind of sporty. You can see here when we switch over to your National Weather Service radar, the rain bands from this expansive system being several hundred miles offshore are already reaching the Cape Hatteras area. We're seeing actual tropical rain showers as far to the left as the coastline of North Carolina. That's how wide the system is. You can't quite see it because obviously our radar beams are not going to be able to propagate that far out to catch something in the western Atlantic. But to put it into perspective, looking at the Raleigh radar here, I'm pretty sure this is the Raleigh radar, you're seeing really good spiral banding working its way in, and it's just light shower activity. A lot of this is really just going to be what happens with the ocean. That's the primary concern here for sure. And then I want to transition back over here. We're out in the MDR now. We're looking at the deep tropics off the west coast of Africa because this is good old 99L. And to tell you the truth, you can see that we're starting to get a little bit of wind shear acting upon the system. The dry air hasn't quite caught up to it just yet. You can kind of see on this satellite image, it's slowly but surely beginning to work its way in out of the northeast, and it kind of stinks for the tropics, to tell you the truth. It's good for us because we're going to go quiet down big time for the next 7 to 10 days, possibly even upwards of 14 days. We might be on a 2-week break, to tell you the truth, but we'll talk about that here in a second. You can see we still have a very, very active wave train out there. They're coming off at the wrong time, though. They're going to run head first right into some pretty disgusting conditions off the immediate coast. Erin's going to really amplify our subtropical ridging, bring down a lot of the continental mid-latitude dry air that's going to get wrapped up in this system that's already wrapped up in it. And because we're going to intensify the high pressure and the clockwise flow over the central Atlantic, it's going to take all that dry air from up north and just dump it right across these 3 tropical waves. But these are fairly impressive. I really do think we have at least a tropical depression out there right now. That feature looks fairly healthy. Earlier today, it had even better convection consolidated around the mid-level and the maybe-ish sorta coming together low-level spin. And then you can see off to the immediate right-hand side, I'll move the screen over a little bit so you can see, we have 2 more really healthy tropical waves that are just essentially going to meet their demise once they come off the coastline. It is 99L that we still want to watch out for, though, as we go over the next 7 days. We'll see if models get a little more jazzed about it. Currently, we have some artificial intelligence support. The AI model does have some ensemble members percolating in the Gulf. It's very interesting, too, because there was a rapid shift from plowing into eastern Mexico to now recurving. And I can show you that if you want to see it. I wasn't going to show them to you, to tell you the truth, because it's just so far out. And with how much ground this thing has to cover, not only escaping the MDR as a weak signal, but then traversing the Windward Islands, the ABC Islands, the northern periphery of Venezuela, and then possibly trying to find that favorable pocket. Have tropical waves done that before? Absolutely. Will it manage to escape the Caribbean trade wind increase that we're going to see as surface high pressure builds back in during our suppressed or our squished phase of the MJO? Absolutely. It definitely has the chance to do it, but I'm not going to put any vote of confidence in it right now just because of how bad of a jinx I've been this hurricane season. And on top of that, we have bigger fish to fry. I want to talk a little bit more long range since we don't have any imminent threats for anybody out there. Rapidly going through some of your model data, this is cyclonic weather. You can see that right behind what could possibly become our next named system, we have a nice little area of anticyclonic outflow kind of building in. We have a couple of different features here. We have an enormous break in the upper air pattern in terms of your wind shear. That's your wave break right there that's going to dump all the dry air into the eastern Atlantic and especially the eastern tropical Atlantic. So you're kind of in a very messy spider web of all sorts of different things. Our AOI that is now code red tonight is going to find this little sweet spot and kind of be invigorated by not only your outflow provided by our Atlantic high pressure, but then a couple of other circular features upper low features, I should say, on either side of it that'll help to provide some ventilation for it. But then you can see as a result of both of these cutoff features, especially the one just behind our area of interest, we don't have an invest designation for it yet. Perhaps we will see invest 9DL hit by the weekend, by about Friday time, maybe maybe Saturday. We'll probably see this start to become a little bit more organized and squished together, taking on that more tropical signature. But then you can see that not only do we have that massive break in our pattern on the eastern half of the Atlantic, we have another cutoff feature that managed to drift down into the upper tropics, lower subtropics, that's going to wreak havoc on those next upstream waves. And then we're also, notice what happens with your easterly jet here off of Africa as well as we go even further towards the end of the month. See how it kind of just dies off? You get some weak bursts here and there, but we're not seeing as pronounced of our flow out in that general area. And we start to pick up upper level westerlies from out of the Caribbean and into the western and central MDR. So that's also problematic. You can see that the background characteristics of the environment are just going down the drain. If you take a look at your upper level vorticity, your potential vorticity plot, which shows you those streamers that eventually break off either into low pressure, or I should say low height centers, or just linger around as extensions of your upper trough, there's that one right there. Oh, there goes my cursor being silly again. There goes this one right here that's going to help to really agitate the pattern a little bit, and that's what's going to make it a bit more hostile for Invest 99L. We'll have to see once it breaks away from that TUTS influence and moves into the central and western Caribbean if it decides to get going. And then after that, the rest is history. You can see we have even more small filaments, if you will, of positive vorticity in the atmosphere in the form of upper-low cold pockets. That's not going to do you any good in terms of tropical development. So, well, that could be it. It's possible. One Nation Weather, thank you very much for joining in. I do appreciate you coming in, bud. It's good to see you. So, moisture is going to be ripped apart over the next 72 hours. You can see that first blast of dry air is going to squish the next upcoming tropical waves. And then once former Erin, at this point, you can see a 959 millibar low screaming towards the upper portions of Europe. That increase in your mid to upper level flow is really going to drag down a ton of dry air. And right here is where you can pretty much guarantee the tropics are going to be closed for a little bit. But then I want to show you this. Look at that buildup of moisture out towards the western side of the basin. That is going to be the early precursor stages of our gyre showing up. Still not sold on the GFS showing a intensifying hurricane in the Gulf. We'll have to wait and see. The GFS has lost a lot of trust in me, or I should say I've lost a lot of trust in the GFS. I'm sorry my words are so garbled this evening. But regardless, you can still see even after that point as we get into early September, not only do we have a huge buildup of moisture out there, but then if you look over yonder off the west coast of Africa, we're starting to see those tropical waves coming in for sure. I think the Euro does a fantastic job of capturing that. I'll show you your background pressures first to show you how much of a transition we're about to hit. So if I start the loop back at the very beginning, the initial phase of the loop here, if WeatherBell will cooperate for me, you can see a large majority of the western half of the Atlantic, especially still, is underneath lower than average pressures, which means we still have some decent lift out there. The thermodynamic characteristic, basically your temperature as you go up in the atmosphere, is a little more on the unstable side. Stability, you have cooler air down closer to the ground level, warmer air, relatively speaking, above it. You're not going to have any mixing. You're not going to have any thunderstorms. There's not going to be any lift to get these things nudging and coming up. As you get past the next 7 days, watch what happens when I click the middle. Notice what's going on across the tropics now from the Gulf all the way to the coast of Africa. See how our background pressures have really jumped up and we're under anomalously higher pressure again? We are now suppressed. You have the air pressing down towards ground level, which means we're not going to see any lift, and our overall instability profile is going to drop big time. Then, as you get after the 1st of September, Notice if you look towards the left-hand side of the chart, we're really starting to see the Eastern Pacific, the Caribbean, and the Gulf start to undergo lower pressures. We're going to start to see that flip as our MJO and some of the pulses associated with the MJO come back across. And then one interesting piece I did notice on today's output, if I switch us over to your mid-level vorticity, look at how the MDR suddenly wakes back up as we get a bit of a Kelvin wave ejection is what I'm calling it from the main branch of the MJO. We have one tropical wave that already looks pretty put together in the long range and then another one. And again, I want to emphasize to you that we are fast forwarded to the 15-day mark. This is out to September 4th. So no, I'm not highlighting individual features here. What I'm showing you is that as early as the first few days of September, our background environment, the capability of sustaining tropical storms, and I say storms in terms of thunderstorms, rain, showers, just general precipitation. We're not talking named storms. The general environment will start to revert back. And then by about September 10th, some folks in my tropical chat, for example, we're in pretty good agreement that at the very latest, September 12th through the 15th, that's when we're going back. We're back, basically. And I'll show you that right now. I'm going to pull up a new, different bit of charts that I haven't really shown you all at all pretty much during the life cycle of this channel. First of all, I want to show you the dynamical models for the MJO. Let me switch us back to the, oh, this is the weird page overlay. Can I do this? No, that puts it further to the left. So as you can see, over the next 15 days, we're going to be leaving phase 3, which already, you know, it's favorable, but not as favorable. Usually phases 1 and 2 of the MJO, depending on how enhanced or suppressed it is, will usually favor the Atlantic Basin. And you can see here that we're getting out of phase 3, which is already kind of down the road for us. We're already starting to lose that upper level forcing, and we're going to be in phases 4, 5, and 6 into the 7th phase for the next 15 days. That's really going to crush the Atlantic Basin. So unless we get some rogue spin-ups close to home, either off the coastline from a frontal boundary, since those things have been pretty strong much of the summertime, or if we do get that gyre to start to sneak in, we might see a buildup of moisture, maybe something goes off, but I'm thinking we're going to see another burst of activity in the Eastern Pacific. We'll have to give it a little time to see if there's some hangover between when the Eastern Pacific gets rocking again and when the Atlantic gets going. So with that being said, let's show you some of the anomalies. These are interesting. I like these charts, and I honestly haven't used them enough on here to explain what's happening. So this is where we sit right now. And if you notice, what we're looking at here are going to be your upper level winds. Let me move the Epic pen out of the way so I can verify. Yeah, we're looking at our 200 millibar wind flow. This is pretty much the highest point you can get in terms of your millibar levels near the tropics before you hit the tropopause, which is the kind of the barrier at the top of the troposphere before you get into where weather doesn't really exist. You don't have temperature gradients and all that stuff driving weather phenomena. So the tropopause is the cap of all of our weather activity. 200 millibars, maybe 100, 150 millibars around the tropics usually is where you start to see from the top down where your weather is observed. After that point, you're still kind of in the troposphere, but you get so isothermal, which means you warm with height, you're not really going to have any weather up there. And so one thing I want you to notice, this is valid from the 25th to about the 1st of September, still have some decent easterly flow coming off of Africa, which is good, but then look at how very quickly we reestablish our westerly opposing flow. That's going to really crank up our wind shear, and it's not going to help us out at all. However, you fast forward very quickly to the 1st of September out to the 8th, and it's even worse. If you notice now, we're starting to see even more prevalent westerly flow in the upper levels through the MDR. Usually, if you want to decrease your vertical wind shear and give a little bit of these tropical waves a friendly nudge in the upper level department, increase how much diffluence we have to raise the motions a little bit more, to increase how powerful these waves can get as they come off of Africa, you want very strong easterly flow. That's that easterly jet between 500 and 200 millibars coming off the Africa coast. So you can see here that at least according to the Euro weekly charts, we're probably going to see the MDR specifically shut down. But then I want to turn your attention to what's happening back here. See how we're starting to see a bit of a general disruption in our flow? We're seeing westerly winds over Central America, and we're getting some easterly winds coming back over Mexico. That is the early phases of the MJO, or at least a Kelvin wave getting ready to come through to help disrupt the flow. Now you fast forward to the 8th out to the 15th, and look at the difference here. We have anticyclonic flow, clockwise flow right over Central America. Gyre, anybody? Did anybody order a CAG? CAG, anyone? And then we also have returned to our predominantly easterly flow. Look at that. From the Lesser Antilles to the coast of Africa, we are now back to our easterly flow. From this time frame, if you switch down to your mid-levels, we'll go down to 850. Now look at the difference here. See how your trade wind flow has really weakened? You have nil to no flow down here, which is good for wind shear. We're now to westerly winds through the Caribbean, so our trade wind anomalies are going to come down. And then look at our lowering pressure up in through here. Right there, we have that counterclockwise spin, really showing lowering pressures over Central America. So we're going to have kind of a 1-2 punch here very soon. And when I say 1-2 punch, we're going to have two areas to watch. This is the Euro weekly Havmahler chart. This is your time-based chart looking at your velocity anomalies, how much more vertical motion we have or sinking motion we have. And you can see right on schedule as we get just beyond the next couple days, we're really going to crush the Atlantic's hopes and dreams. We might get a little more ace out of Erin, a little more ace out of whatever becomes of our AOY with a 70% shot over the next 7 days. So we're still on par now to reaching that above average criteria from the preseason forecasts. But then you can see right about the 9th to about, like I said yesterday in live stream, to about especially September 11th, we're going to have Kelvin waves moving through, and then it's all hands on deck once that MJO comes back across. And if this model doesn't quite convince you, here's your weather model's more user-friendly overlay. You can see that there are a couple of waves, perturbations in the pattern, one there, and then bam. Nice push of MJO movement right across our basin for the end of September and into October. So October, again, like I've been thinking, we're probably going to see an extension of September's activity very similar to last year. So that's why I use the terminology, it's all hands on deck. You look at our extended range MJO forecast, and if you look at the top here, this is your color coding. Notice that we're not using the same kind of structure as the dynamical models you have, the 15-day model on Climate Prediction Center. We're looking all the way out to about 20 some odd days, a little bit more extended range. So this would go out to roughly after September 10th, September 12th. And if you look at our day 15 and our day 20 ensemble members, they are all wrapping back into phases 8, 1, and 2. And to tell you the truth, I know we have quite a bit of a spread here, but we can either have a fairly excited MJO or at least an excited MJO. It's not going to be very suppressed. If we had a lot of our green and blue members circling the inner portions of the circle here, then absolutely, the MJO is not going to do very much for us. We won't see as much pronounced lift. But in this case, since a large majority of your members are actually out here, that also says to us that the Euro suggests that our MJO will actually have a lot of oomph behind it, a lot of power. And then finally, before we wrap up and I open it up to some brief questions before we close out the live stream, I'm very thankful that the internet has finally cooperated. We haven't had any lag at all, at least according to my end of the picture. Folks, if I could ask you really kindly, hit that like button. Hit that like button because this is a very weird day. I don't want to zap the momentum that we've gained on this channel, especially since it looks like we're moving towards a busier phase here within the next 2 weeks. So please, if I could get the 200 some odd people in this chat right now, if you all just take a split second to hit nudge, forgot my terminology there, to nudge that like button. Let's get the likes up. Let's get some eyes on this video, please. It would mean a lot, sincerely, especially after the day I've had and likely the week that I have coming up. But you know, we're fighting. We're bobbing and weaving. I got my hands up and we're doing our head movement. This is how we'll close out. I thought this was very interesting. Let me go back to the weird page. So check this out. I wasn't going to do I remember the last time I did a video like that and I put, look at this. Everyone was saying it's clickbait. I don't know how, because I do want you to look at that. Would you just look at it? Would you look at that? I thought this was very interesting, and that's why I made sure to circle it on my notes here. I wanted to close out the discussion today, whether it be a video or this live stream. Look at what Climate Prediction Center is thinking as we go through the back half of the hurricane season. They're actually thinking from September, October, November, we're trending into La Nina territory. And then for October, November, into the winter, December, we're now outrunning ENSO neutral probabilities. And this is the CPC forecast. So remember, it's got that human element into it as well. It's not just the models. The models over here on the right-hand side still think it's going to be a close competition between cool neutral to a weak La Nina. So make no mistake, on the left-hand side here, we're not thinking we're going to be into some powerful, moderate, or stronger La Nina. It's not going to cave in that much. But again, like I'd mentioned, I think yesterday, especially as the MJO rocks back into the maritime continents where we have a lot of hot water built up, we're going to increase the amount of westerly flow we have across the 4 and the 3.4 ENSO regions. And that's how you instigate more upwelling. So even though we've had some warming going on in the 3 and especially closer to South America on the 1+2, it's primarily thanks to the fact we haven't had any tropical action out there to really kick up our upper level winds to boost some of that upwelling. It's been very quiet out there. We've been very quiet since the Atlantic went off, and we're going to flip the script once again. So we'll probably see those temperatures oscillate, but I'll be watching very closely for what happens in the 3.4 and the 4 and see exactly what our PDO does. Because even though our temperatures in the North Pacific are abnormally hot, because of the fact that we still have our warm mist anomalies up towards Alaska and off the coast of Japan, Russia, etc., that still suggests we're in a cool PDO. And cool PDOs, Pacific Decadal Oscillations, or Decadal Oscillations, however you want to pronounce that, will usually stimulate the ENSO. It'll provide us with a little bit more cooling off the Baja, Mexico coast down into the tropics on the Pacific side. So we'll see. Does this change things for the peak of the hurricane season? I think so. Did Erin kind of give us a helping hand in the thermodynamics department? I actually think so. And again, it goes back to my overarching phrase about all things weather. Give and take. Where you give a little, you gotta have some taken. So in this case, we're shutting down the basin for the end of August. We're not going to see very much activity out there. We're probably still going to get some tropical waves and some little, signals here and there. But in terms of actual action, I'm not seeing it. It's really going to boil down to what happens during the middle sections of September and especially the tail end. But I want to show you this. Let's pull up our North Atlantic real fast, and then I'll pull up the SST anomalies. So look what's happening near our warm waters in the tropics and the subtropics. If you notice, we've had a ton of upwelling go on to the south of where Hurricane Erin is right now. And this is valid for the 19th, so this is yesterday's observation. If I were to show you some of the hurricane model data, for the sake of time, I'm not going to, but given where we are sitting now, right about here, we're probably going to carve up a nice little channel of cooler anomalies, kind of like what Hurricane Franklin did back in 2023. Same thing with Hurricane Lee when it moved up in that same general area. We're going to start to bring down this warm pocket of subtropical water. It probably won't be that big. It'll probably just be a little corridor like this. But notice that's where our warmest water anomalies are. We've got the northeast Atlantic really warming up, so that's going to help to kind of feed the Canary Current right up against Northwest Africa, right back down to the tropics. We've got a lot of tropical action down there, so that's why we have that small pocket of cooler anomalies there. We've had very strong tropical waves coming off, and then a really good easterly jet to help with our upwelling up there, or down there, I should say. But what I'm getting at here is the Caribbean has really warmed up, and the Atlantic is ready to rock in terms of the tropics. And once Erin kind of depletes a little bit of this sea surface temperature energy up here, it's only going to get that much better. So again, give and take, give and take. Am I saying this is going to change the course of the whole season, hyperactive? No, but when it comes from the fact that we started this year, January, February, March, April into May, with cold temperatures across the basin, and we flipped it upside down as we progress further through September and then October and even early November for our closer to home type of spin-ups, it's only going to help us improve that much more. Can't get rid of the fact that we're still hung over from all those cooler anomalies and the rockin' easterly trade winds we've had out there to really stir the pot of the waters and cool them down. But regardless, as we move on through time, especially if we do get that La Nina, again, we're looking at all sides of the spectrum. Notice I mentioned North Pacific, Tropical Pacific. We talked about the Indian Ocean in previous discussions, and now we're talking the Atlantic. So we're kind of seeing things align, like a planetary alignment that's trying to come into sync here to help kick us off as we go through September and October. So while we may not be holding on to our butts just yet, my gut still says eventually we're going to be at DEF CON 1, and I'm going to have an honest and sincere moment where I do say it's time to hold on to your butts. Because right now it seems like we are in fairly good and confident agreement that the show is yet to start, truthfully. And again, I say that loosely. I'm not talking like this thing's going to be 2020, but when I say that, we're looking at activity on average similar to like what we saw in 2022, 2024, portions of 2021. You know, some of the semi-heavy hitting hurricane seasons to where you go into a lull and then suddenly you're off to the races, just tracking, storm. And then because we still have, if you look at the SST anomalies right here, our warmest waters are still on the west side of the Atlantic. And when it comes to your most basic rule of thumb, hurricanes move heat. That tells me that we're going to have to watch out as we move through September and October. Because if you think about it, where was our hottest water? If you rewind the clock, our hottest water was right in through here. Where have all of our things going? Just saying. Somebody in the chat right now just said putting too much stock in operational models. This isn't an operational model. This is a live picture of what our water temperatures are doing out there. And if you go down to just your basic principle rule of thumb of hurricanes like heat and they transport heat, if you notice, most of our hot water is still closest to home. And so as a result, if Erin churns the waters a little bit up closer to Bermuda and we bring these temperatures down and bring in the focus towards the Caribbean and the Gulf here, especially once that gyre gets going, it's a tested and tried and true source region. Name a year in the last several hurricane seasons, and I mean all of them, that we haven't had a major hurricane close to home that hit somebody. 24, don't even get me started. 2023, we had a Dahlia. 2022, we had Hurricane Ian. 2021, I'm pretty sure there was a notable storm down there. 2020, forget it. 2019, I don't remember what happened in 2019, but I know we had Dorian right off the immediate east coast of Florida where our hot waters were. 2018, we had Michael. 2017, we've been talking 27, looking at it from pattern recognition. You look at your configuration out there, and then you take a look at how things are transpiring, the movement of the MJO. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to look at models. You can't just kind of put a finger up to the wind and say the MJO is coming. So, you got to look at what's happening real time, where we've come from, and then kind of make a determination on where we're going. That, in essence, folks, to wrap everything up, is forecasting. You don't put everything into a model. You don't put everything into analysis. You don't put everything into what's happening in the short term. You don't put everything into continuity. You take continuity, you look at your data, you look at your analysis, you initialize your models, and then you look ahead with the models. That is your very basic forecast funnel. And I see YouTube is yelling at me, so I'm going to go ahead and take us full screen and get ready to close out. Could the GFS be showing that fantasy storm because of that South America vort bias? I would think so, Jose. It does look a little spurious. And when I say spurious, it's, it kind of just flares up. The GFS will gravitate towards it. So while there is some reality in the vorticity kind of being amped up a bit down near South America into the Southern Caribbean because of the orientation of the coastline, yeah, but again, I don't trust the GFS that much. And since we have virtually no other model showing it now, the AI did a couple runs, but it has since dropped it. I want to give it some time. Right now, I don't like it. I don't see that happening. I especially don't see a hurricane right now. But again, if you listen closely, I'm saying right now. Is it doable? It is. And my favorite phrase, is it the most likely outcome right now? No. No, but we have some ensemble support. We have a healthy tropical wave that is going to lose some of its luster and move through that same general area where the waters are hot, and we're going to see that little bit of a perturbation from the Kelvin wave aloft, that upper level forcing feature that's going to roll through. So, again, it's all about the tropical lottery, and right now we're winning the lottery all thanks to Hurricane Erin. Erin won the lottery at first, but now we're, kind of seeing some backlash from it in terms of the tropical waves. But that's it. That's all she wrote, everybody. We went over time again, but I'm glad that we had a fruitful discussion. I do appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you for those of you who did hit the like button. I do see that the likes went up a little over 100. If you have a spare second right now, if you could hit that like button, if you got something new from this information tonight, I would really appreciate it. It would mean a lot. Shout out to Chris Mazzell. Shout out to Justin once again for the assistance and the generosity that you showed today. It goes a long way. It really does. And I wish that I could say a little bit more than just, words into a microphone. But that's all she wrote. That's it. Rodney, I hate to say it, bud. I hate to say it. We'll kind of close on that real quick because he does bring up a valid point. What the pattern looks like as we get closer to the beginning of gyre time. And if you look at the eastern United States, that's not looking too friendly. Look at that. Nice extension of a positive PNA. Nice little East Coast trough there. So what's saving us right now, if anything does decide it wants to do its thing down to the south, it's going only in one direction. So, but again, that's if anything gets going. So Rodney, I'll let you know I'm looking. I'm watching everything. I'm starting to sweat. You can probably see some of the shine showing up. Can't believe it's only been 5 days and the AC is out again. The Nazario effect jinx is really in effect. But it was great talking with everybody tonight. And James, I'll work on that. I'll work on toning it down a little bit. I try to use the advanced terminology and then explain what it means. Like clockwise, counterclockwise, going backwards on a clock, going forward on a clock. Upward vertical motion, we're just moving up. Positive vorticity just means lift, action in the atmosphere, hot water, cold water, like things like that. Low pressure, high pressure. But I'll work on it. The long live stream side is where I can kind of just nerd out and talk weather. And if you all have questions and want to learn a little bit more, I'm happy to explain it too. But I just kind of do my thing. I just roll with it. But yeah, I'll work on it. I'm always welcome to the feedback. I've thought about it, Rodney, about a GoFundMe, to tell you the truth, because, gentleman already told me earlier today. I asked, so I know you guys just replaced a part, but will this same part, how much will this roughly cost? And he goes, well, the part's under warranty, but you're looking at the same cost of labor. That's like 2 Honda Civics right there, to put it into perspective without putting numbers out there. I have a nice job and all that, but I'm not trying to go buy 2 cars in the span of a week. So that's that. And we'll go ahead and close out the live now. I'm not going to take up too much more of your time, but we'll talk to you all again very soon. I will have a regular video tomorrow, I promise. The world isn't going to go upside down again, and I'm sorry for the inconsistency today. But until next time, folks, this is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.